So yeah, uh, I'm supposed to give the talk with Keith Wojcicki, our global head for threat intelligence, but unfortunately, he has a very important meeting in Malacanang today. So he's been here with us since last week. So I'm all alone, and Paul Jackson is right here in the front seat with Amy Wong. So I'm in immense pressure right now. So where's my drink? Let's get it on. I need the alcohol. Come on, Jamie, where's my drink? I need alcohol right now.
Love it. Yeah.
Oh,
Teka lang, sir. Teka lang, sir.
I think they're mixing up drinks, a special drink for me. Scott, they gave you vodka, right? Oh,
Ito na, sir. First time to, ikaw na nag-request. Speaker request. Oh, water yan.
oh yeah.
Woo!
You're still gonna give me another one later, right?
Nangihingi pa yan ulit.
So yeah. So this morning I'm gonna talk to you about uh, TODDLERSHARK. Yeah. So the gist of the presentation that I'm gonna present to you right now is just, I want to give you an overview and an insight into how we were able to detect and analyze a new malware strain, or what we generally consider as NDAs. And it's a key part of cyber defense. There are a lot of new malwares coming out every day, and to make sure that your security operation centers are detecting new strains of malware like TODDLERSHARK. So before that, I'm gonna talk about the ScreenConnect vulnerability. Of course, ConnectWise ScreenConnect is a remote access application. It's been used by thousands of remote support, administrative work, and it's often deployed in business-to-business environments for remote assistance. So kind of like the things that most IT admins use every day, right? So our scans, particularly in February when the vulnerability came out, we've been seeing that as much as at one time, we're seeing more than 9,700 instances, right? So at one time, there are around 9,700 endpoints connected to the Connect, or using the ConnectWise ScreenConnect application. So our colleague, Chris Leach, one of our analysts, discovered this particular vulnerability, which led to two vulnerabilities. One is CVE-2024-1708, which has a CVSS score of 8.4. And it's quite high, right? It's a path traversal vulnerability, which allows an attacker to execute remote code remotely on the ScreenConnect server. Now, the nastiest of these two vulnerabilities would be, of course, CVE 2024-1709, which has a CVSS score of 10.0. It's quite high. And what it does, it allows for authentication bypass due to insufficient path filtering. And because of this, it would be possible for any string to be appended after the extension in the URLs that you use to allow for bypassing authentication. And combining these two vulnerabilities, one can bypass authentication and use a zip slip style vulnerability to upload and execute code. Oftentimes, threat actors would use web shells in order to have access into their victims. So It affects versions that are older than 23.9.8. And while ScreenConnect and ConnectWise, work so hard to provide a patch for this vulnerability, I'd like to walk through into how this vulnerability was discovered and how it was how patches were released, and then what we're seeing in the wild in terms of exploitation. So yeah, so the main point of the vulnerability is, of course, the ability to bypass what we always presume are hard-coded security measures that are to prevent an authenticated user from accessing an endpoint called the setup wizard. Of course, the wizard that we always use when installing software, right? And supposedly, only users that are logged in with a password and authorized to add users should have access to the setup wizard. Now, because of the combination of these vulnerabilities, one can access the admin panel and add another administrator as if it's a fresh install. And with new authentication, a threat actor can do a zip slip attack, for example, to make requests against the install extension endpoint. And this would allow an attacker to upload a web shell, for example. So the setup wizard.aspx feature is supposed to be only accessible to users who have already logged in, and except that if you add a certain text to the end of the URL, in this example, we appended /rc18. Now, because of that, you can have access to the web setup wizard itself. So effectively bypassing authentication. And with this, you can add a new administrator, okay, with admin privileges. And after setting up a new administrator account, an attacker could perform other attacks, right? So if we look into the code, which is this code, this snippet of code, lies within the ScreenConnect.service.exe, the executable that's used to run the ScreenConnect application. And if you look at this, the checks, particularly for context.request.path, as you can see here, the checks against it are a bit insufficient. And because of that, you can append a string. There's nothing here that prevents or detects new strings that are appended to the URL. So, for example, if you go to 127.0.0.1 /setupwizard.axps/rc18, for example, you could go into the setup wizard, and that would mean you can go to the setup wizard because that would mean that the flag, as you can see in this code snippet, has never been set to true. And with that, you can access the setup script and enter new admin credentials and reset the configured ones, okay? So now, it's important to look into the exploitation timeline, because in that way, as I've said earlier, we would have insight into how new vulnerabilities are exploited in the wild, and how fast that we need to install the patch as the good guys. So the vulnerability was first reported to ScreenConnect on the 19th of February. Okay? I mean the 13th of February. And then a week after, on the 19th of February, ConnectWise notified its customers and issued a patch. So a notification and a patch at the same time. So that happens to be a Monday, okay, February 19th. And then, as you can see in this timeline, a day after ConnectWise made the announcement, we are already seeing POCs in the wild. Okay? So that kind of illustrates how fast threat actors and security researchers are, how fast they are able to analyze the vulnerability and find ways on how to exploit it. And it's a fairly simple vulnerability, easy to exploit. And as we can see here, a few days after, from our DFIR practice on the February 24th, we have already observed the first ransomware deployment. And during the investigation, our DFIR teams identified the initial access that was done on the 21st of February. So as you know, ransomware threat actors have not so much dwell time, right? As they come in fast, they do data extraction as fast as possible, and then deploy the ransomware binaries. So, but if you look further into the timeline, as good guys, we have less than 48 hours to do the patch, right? Because 2 days after, we're already seeing threat actors exploiting the vulnerability. But the thing is, the 19th of February, as I've said earlier, it happens to be a Monday, it's actually a US holiday. That was the President's Day, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's the President's Day. And it's a long weekend, yeah, right? And you know how we Filipinos celebrate long weekends, right? So I would just imagine coming from a long holiday weekend and being stuck in traffic as what we normally experience here in the SLEX and NLEX, right? So maybe in the US, they'd be stuck in the freeway as well, and then you get a notification saying, oh, there are new vulnerabilities in the software applications that you're using. So realistically, we have less than 24 hours to do the patch, right? Coming from the weekend. So those are the things that we need to consider being on the defensive side. So it's not just discovering the vulnerabilities first before the bad guys find ways to exploit it, but to be fast enough, right, to deploy the patch and the solutions against these vulnerabilities and do the mitigations. So now let's take a closer look at the malware that we've discovered by our MDR teams who are here right now. So yeah, we have TODDLERSHARK, okay, and we consider them as BABYSHARK's kuya, much older sibling. So, yeah, Paul, please remember you should bring me into the malware screening committee. Malware naming committee, I mean. We've got fabulous ways to name these malwares. So, our MDR team were our first contact. They were the first that was alerted with these detections. And I'd like to note that these detection mechanisms were not isolated on a single endpoint. It was actually uh, it was actually detected in multiple endpoints. And I see my colleagues in the SOC team nodding and smiling because they remember seeing this. And, and another thing, this, these detection mechanisms were not designed to catch this particular malware, but rather they were designed to catch APT threats. These are common TTPs, the TTPs that you normally get from the MITRE attack framework. So we normally, our detection engineering team normally would study those TTPs and and um, and design our detection mechanisms against them. So here, as you can see, it looks like the behavior of this malware they've been using two popular living of the land binaries. One is MHTA and certutil. I know it's very much familiar to you. So here, as you can see here, the detection for MSHTA is specifically looking for the invocation with a URL. So the URL for to security reasons, we just black it off. And the threat actor tried to make the URL look legit. But of course it's not. It looks suspicious. And good thing our SOC team are very much alerted by these suspicious looking URLs. And we also see a certutil detection firing for the encoding of a file, which we're going to take a look in the next few slides. So now let's take a look into what are the MSHTA command has been doing from the point of view of the Security Operations Center. So here is the process tree. So we see the ScreenConnect service, which is of course a ScreenConnect client service.exe, which runs command.exe. And it spawns MSHTA process. And that alerted the detection that we saw earlier. And then it loads a whole lot of other command processes. Okay? So to the blue team, this would immediately raise red flags, right? Right? And what it does, it actually downloads a heavily obfuscated VBS script. It's polymorphic, so it changes each time that it's being downloaded. It presents randomly generated functions, a lot of garbage that would you wouldn't normally take a closer look into, but that's how threat actors try to hide the code, right? So there's a lot of junk code and variable names and hexadecimal encoded payloads. So here, if we're gonna clean this up, so there's a large binary that's being invoked in this script. So if we're just gonna clean it up a bit, you can see here that the second stage payload URL is very much unique for every time that is being invoked, okay? And it contains a set of functionalities made up of three parts. First, they set up the Windows registry keys, and then they capture system information, and then exfiltrate it. So that would generally raise some flags of recon activities, right? And once the tool has gathered all this information, it would then use the built-in Windows command certutil in order to encode the stolen information in a PEM certificate, a privacy enhanced mail, and then exfiltrate them into the C2 web application. So all this happen as a scheduled task. So it runs in order to communicate with the C2 server and receive additional commands. And here is the activity, a bit more in detail. Okay, as you can see here, it's clearly a reconnaissance and information stealing activity, a lot of ACL files you're seeing here. And it's much designed to give the attacker a better idea of where they have deployed the malware. So it contains information like user info, machine and hardware information, list of installed programs. That's very important, especially if the threat actor is going to do living off the land, is going to live off the land, okay, and use the installed applications that are already available in the system. And of course, they're getting information about any antivirus programs that you have. And then, of course, the task list and the network information. And then, gathering all this information, they place the results of the command into an ACL file, as you can see here. So there's a lot of ACL files. And as you can see, it's randomly generated names. And they are then encoded into a PEM file and then send it to the C2 server. Okay. So finally, the malware will then install a persistence mechanism as a scheduled task. So the script is written to an alternative data stream of a different file that is located in a directory within program data. And the script contains a URL. Yeah, so the script would contain a URL that will be requested every minute by the scheduled task. And any response from the URL is passed to the VB script to execute the function that it will immediately run. Now again, this URL is uniquely generated, right? So it's hard to put these URLs as one of your IOCs because every time it runs, you get a different set of URLs. And we believe that the threat actor would like to identify the system and see what they have infected and and then using a unique ID, they would be able to issue commands. And of course, we didn't see the commands that were issued because our SOC team were already able to stop it before they were able to execute those commands. So now, more insight into the shark family. So it's not just toddler shark, we have baby shark and recon shark. Of course, you know about daddy shark and mommy shark. Where are the kids? So we've been seeing a lot of overlaps and a lot of characteristics that are very much similar across these different malware strains. And one of which is that all of these malware makes some registry edits. So normally they would set the keys for VBA warning keys for Word and Excel to a value of 1. Okay? For Office 2010, Office 2013, and Office 2016, the older versions. And why? The value of 1 means untrusted, and trusted macros are allowed to run without notification. Okay? So what does it do? What does it do? So if a threat actor was able to do this into your registry keys, and he sends you a spear phishing attachment, a Word file with a macros on it, it would be running those macros without you knowing it. Why? Because you won't be seeing the notifications, and they're running already as a trusted macro. So another one is that they're using USO, which means an update session orchestrator. It's still part of the Windows utilities, and they do this to hide. They try to hide their existence within the system and hide it among legit Windows binaries. And then we're also seeing some leftovers from hastily deployed BABYSHARK malware. So Palo Alto's Unit 42 actually did an extensive report on BABYSHARK, and we saw some overlaps. By the way, big shout out to Renz. Is he here? My good friend Renz from Unit 42. If you're interested about cybersecurity trainings, you should talk to Renz and Ian, if you guys are here. So we observed the use of USO naming conventions when installing persistence, and BABYSHARK uses an autorun instead of a scheduled task. And apart from that, they're also using the 000 web host app. So previous reporting of Kimsuky, which is a advanced persistent threat group coming from North Korea. They love to use 000 web host app in phishing campaigns. It's a cheap, burnable infrastructure for a hastily developed and opportunistic campaign. So North Korean APTs, which generally uses the Shark family, love to use this. So as I've said, they utilize various malware strains, including the Shark family and Kroll CTI. Oftentimes, these malwares are delivered through email attachments or links, and their operations involve the deployment of backdoors like Appleseed, AlphaSeed, as well as remote access Trojans such as TrueClient, TODDLERSHARK, which enables remote control of infected systems. Now, to maintain persistence and to evade detection, Kimsuky employs techniques such as registry modification, which we have seen earlier, browser extension installation. So you'll be seeing new browser extensions in your system, privilege escalation, of course, and recent activities that we have seen globally would indicate an expansion of their operations, specifically targeting targets within the Asia-Pacific region and targeting, of course, South Korean entities. Okay. So, just right in time for my conclusion. So, what are the key takeaways? So, as what we have observed in our cyber threat intelligence landscape reports, particularly during the first quarter of this year, edge technology was the most observed initial access vector for ransomware cases. And threat actors, as we have seen here in the timeline, they're very quick to leverage end-day vulnerabilities. And sub-24-hour patching is unrealistic for most organizations. I'm not sure about the case here in the Philippines, in your organizations, but the faster you can install the patch, the better, right? And we need to incorporate these scenarios into your tabletop exercises. Who among you do tabletop exercises? I'm seeing a few hands. So yeah, you should incorporate these scenarios, small timelines for patching, the availability of resources to do the patch, you know, and you need to develop and test. You know? You need to develop and test playbooks to respond to events such as this. Now, we're often hearing people saying that defense in depth is dead, right? They're deploying zero trust architecture, but the reality is it still pays to put layers of defenses in your system, right? In one way, you would be slowing down the access of attack of your threat actors, and that way you'd be able to enable the faster and earlier identification of the threat and the immediate isolation. And side note, these are our detection mechanisms that we have developed against TODDLERSHARK. So I believe this would be provided to you after this, after the con. So you'd be happy to discuss it further with you if you have any questions. So I think that's it for me. Morning, everyone.